What's up, gamers? I just finished watching Arcane, and I figured I'd give y'all what you subscribed to my channel for, which is, that's right, television show reviews. So yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna talk about Arcane just for a little bit because I want to, right? I want to do it, and if you don't agree with me, you can leave your comments in the dumpster. I mean, in the comment section that I always read. Uh, yeah. Also, big spoilers. Okay, we're gonna talk about primarily we're going to talk about the last episode, okay, because that's where all the meaty juicy stuff happens. So if you haven't watched Arcane in its entirety, watch it. It's a good show. You don't need me to tell you that, though. Everyone's talking about it, so I figured I might as well get in my low effort uh opinion out there. It's not super low effort, though, because I did make some original art for this, believe it or not. So we're going to talk about what are our main characters, and we're going to talk about Vi. This is Vi right here. We're going to talk about Jinx. Here she is. She's got a little smile. She's got her gun. We're going to talk about Silco. Yeah, this guy, and we're going to talk about Caitlyn too. Yeah, we're going to talk about all these fucking nerds. But yeah. So I'm gonna try to keep this within time constraints. So if I talk fast, yeah, that's why. So Arcane, it's an 8 out of 10 show. It's a solid 8 out of 10. All right, that's the bottom line. This is the pre-spoiler review part. Okay, last chance, watch it if you want. Yeah, solid 8 out of 10. I know that there are 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s going around out there and be like, oh, this show slaps shit and whatnot. It's not a 10 out of 10 show, okay? I can see why people are confused because it looks 10 out of 10. It looks really, really good. Like, for instance, this is what Piltover looks like. Check it out. Holy shit. Can you believe the detail in this rendering of Piltover? It's wild. Everything looks really good. It it reminds me of Dishonored, the Dishonored series, the art style. But if Dishonored got like 5 more years of development and it came out on the PS6, that's the level of like cool detail we're talking about. I think it's mostly 3D, although there are obviously some 2D animated elements, which are fine. I don't think it takes away from it or anything. It just mixes them. But yeah, presentation's great. The show looks good. The show sounds really good. The whole production is like awesome. 10 out of 10. Like this is Riot Studios has like they put out great music videos. They put out cool like the non-league related stuff where you have music videos and the lore videos and stuff like that. And the art's always good. So this is like right on par with that. This is what this is like the kind of quality you'd expect out of something like Riot Games. There was one part exactly that took me out of it. It was during the scene when Jace was negotiating with the council members during that opera, and one of the council members, she's like an older lady, but it sounded like she was being voiced by like someone in their mid-20s. That did take me out of it. But aside from that, like great, awesome. Voice acting, solid. Writing is fine. I'm gonna try to not make this like an hour long. I could talk about this for like an hour, but I'm gonna try to keep it to regulation amount. Anyway, so where to start? So 8 out of 10. This is where the show suffers just a little bit. And it doesn't suffer a ton. Like after I finished watching all 9 episodes, I really had to think about it, and that's how I know the show's good, right? Because I don't, it's not obvious to me. Like, okay, what is the show missing? Why didn't it, like just knock it completely out of the park? And this knocked it out, right? This is like a solid double, right? If we're using baseball terms, this is a double, maybe even a triple. It's not a home run though, and the reason why is because of I don't know if it's the writing or if it's because the episodes needed more time. The episodes are about 40 minutes long. They needed about 10 to 15 minutes more in each episode. Because they're juggling a lot of stuff, right? Like there's a story, which is, Vi and Jinx. Oops, sorry about that. Which is Vi and Jinx, right? That's the heart of the story. right? What is the relationship between Vi and Jinx going to end up being at the end of the show? That's what we're building to, right? But we also have this annoying B story, which takes place here in Piltover, wonderfully re-rendered by me, the smiley blimp. And Jace is a fine character. Like, I guess we can talk about. Let's bring up Jace and Victor. Hell yeah! Look at these guys. Victor's all crippled. Jace is, he's kind of a himbo. Jace has big himbo energy, I think is a fair thing to say. But yeah. So the stuff that's happening with them is pretty uninteresting to the main story. This is like lore shit. And weirdly it's kind of the namesake of the story. They're dealing with magic stuff, and that's why it's called, it's Arcane. But again, the heart of the story is Vi and Jinx, and these two kind of contribute nothing to it. Victor doesn't even really have an arc. He just has some stuff. The closest thing to like some kind of resolution or arc or whatever is when his magic bullshit ends up vaporizing his assistant, who we like barely know. Like, she could just be anyone. And like when he cries about it, I get it, right? Like, you've killed someone you've probably been working nearby for a while, but I just have no idea who she is, right? We don't even get a scene that involves this is part of this show. Each episode needed like 10 to 15 minutes more, right? I could have used a few scenes with her that like told me a little bit about her, who is she as a person. As far as we know, though, she just like shows up with a clipboard and she has the hots for Victor, who doesn't have the hots for her, right? That's kind of it. I mean, it's the loss of a human life, but we're sociopathic viewers. We need more than just, oh, someone died, right? We need, oh, this specific person died. So that was a little weak for him. Jace kind of like bounces around as a person. And by the way, if it's not clear why you should have watched Arcane before watching this video, this is why, because I'm not going to give like a ton of background. I'm not going to like preface it. I'm assuming you'll have watched through all of it. Okay, anyway, like Jace kind of bounces around as a character, which I think is fine, right? Like, he does. My friend pointed this out as we were watching. He seems to go with like the nearest suggestion that he gets, right? Like when Heimerdinger says, "Oh, yeah, don't investigate the magic," he's like, "Oh, we shouldn't investigate the magic. We should take our time." And then what's her name? Mel, right? I'm gonna call her Mel. That might not be her name. I actually didn't draw art for her because I forgot about her. But Mel comes along, they bang, and she's like, all right, we gotta do some shit, right? And he's like, oh, I agree, we ought to do some shit. And he makes some shit, and then he is like, progress man. And then and then Vi comes along and she's like, oh, hey, we gotta take out Silco's stuff. He's like, I agree, I'm gonna take my hammer, I'm gonna take out Silco's stuff. And he takes out Silco's stuff. He's like, ugh. And like, that's and he just doesn't really have much of like a moral compass. I mean, he has a strong moral compass. He likes to do good. There's just a lot of good to do, and he tries to do it everywhere all the time, which is fine. Like, that's a fine character trait, but it never really surfaces in the story. Like, we get some consequences that could be tied to that, but he never really has to like deal with it, if that makes any sense. Like, that aspect of him never really lands. So he's kind of even though he goes through changes, he's kind of an arcless character, and that's kind of the case with like all of these characters. They're pretty arcless, and we've talked about Victor and Jace. I'm not too interested in either of them. They're not, even though Jace actually kind of goes through the most changes of any character. He's in the wrong show, kind of, because his part has no heart, right? He's not interesting for he's not interesting for the sake of the story, and so we can now talk about Vi, Jinx, Silco, Caitlyn. Aha, these are our big four gamers. These are our ones. We got Vi and her strong muscles and her big fists. There's Jinx, you can't tell, like, your guns and a big old smile, and Silco's like, I can make Silco bigger. Hold on, just so you can appreciate the detail. There we go. Caitlyn's just a girl with a hat. That's all she is. I didn't have space to draw her body. Okay. So this is where I think the show fell a bit flat for me. Flat's even a strong word. Like, the thing is, the show did good stuff, but it didn't do enough good stuff. So, for instance, we have let's get Silco and Jinx out for it. So we have the internet's favorite pairing, Vi and Caitlyn, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, look at them! They're so cute together." Like, yeah, and that's distracting to gamers, right? Like, gamers love like hot characters who are in the same room together, and like, oh, they probably should be fucked right now. And sure, right? Like, cool, whatever. I'm good with that. However, I'm not distracted by it. I'm trying to figure out what exactly the show wants me to think of these two. It wants me to think of them as like having some kind of, like, obviously not overt, strong relationship, right? But like that sort of thing is blossoming. But the problem is I don't get it. They don't spend a lot of time with each other. They have like an escapade and they come out the other end. It's pretty quick. They don't really even have time to get to know each other. And I mean, even if they do, that's off screen and we don't really see it. Like, they have some good moments, right? Like, you know, when Caitlyn is like watching her eat the weird slug stuff, and when they're in the brothel and Vi's like, hey, you gotta loosen up, you know, you gotta, you know, brothel it up, you know, because you're super hot, and she does that, and but like there isn't a strong connect. Like, these two are connected by circumstance, and they have like kind of a similar goal, but they're not like, there's no reason for them to like start getting the hots for each other. And I don't think that, because like Vi doesn't strike me as like a super horny person, and Caitlyn doesn't strike me as a super horny person, right? Like, they're all sort of like they're focusing on their goals. Like, Vi's focusing on Jinx, and Caitlyn is focused on like getting the gemstone back and finding Jinx, and also, but for different reasons. And there isn't really much room for like, oh, I really like you, especially because they are different, right? They're really different. So something kind of significant has to happen to like bridge that gap. Like maybe Vi is like really lonely, and she's been alone all the time, and so that like causes her to sort of want to speed up some kind of a relationship process, or vice versa with Caitlyn. But I don't really get that, right? So in that oil and water episode, when Vi's like, oh, I'm gonna go, and Caitlyn says, oh, what about us? Like, what about you? Right? Like, there wasn't much there. And I think I'm going to repeat this when we get to the end, of course, but, you know, Vi, there isn't really much going on with Vi. Like, Vi doesn't have a lot going on with her. She's a very simple character, which is fine, but she's not that complicated, and she's not that interesting, right? She has a goal. Like, this is storytelling 101, right? She has her goal, which is Jinx. We know why she can't get it, and we know what she's trying to do and we know what she's trying to do to get it. But that never really amounts to anything, and we'll talk about that when we get to talking about the final episode. But like, Vi is like, she doesn't have a lot of layers. There's just not a lot going on. That's the best way I could put it. You know, like, she's like very simple, very straightforward, which again is fine. But it doesn't really cash out on that. Like, the show really puts all its eggs in one basket with Vi, and I don't think that we get the payoff for that simplicity and single-mindedness that is characteristic of the way she is. Like, she is like very bullheaded and like, focused on one thing. But we don't really get the and I'll talk about why we don't get the payoff for that later. Not in full anyway. So yeah, that's Vi. Vi is like, she's a very simple character, and I guess I'll finish off Caitlyn here too. Like Caitlyn is also not a super interesting character either. Like again, like which is fine. Like she doesn't need to be like ultra complex and stuff like that. But she doesn't have a lot going on. She's kind of a prop. Like anyone could kind of be Caitlyn in this show, right? Like she could be anyone. She could even in the final scene when Jinx is like, "Oh, if you kill Caitlyn, I'll be powder again." Like it could be anyone. It feels because again, like she doesn't really have a strong personal connection with Vi. Not really. The show wants us to think so, but it's like it's not quite there. They're buddies maybe, but it's like it's not like, oh, I care about you so much. Again, we'll talk about the whole thing with Jinx later, but yeah, Caitlyn doesn't really have a ton going on with her. Like her relationship with Jace doesn't really go anywhere or seem to have anything that is worth commenting on. Again, the whole Overcity Piltover stuff has very little like emotional connection to what's going on, except for maybe Mel, whose giant mom kind of works as an iteration on one of the themes, which is of the show, which has to do with like how we'll compromise our own goals for our loved ones, right? Like Mel's mom, and again, I don't have Mel. I'll just close this. We'll pretend Mel is here. I think her name's Mel, right? Hold on. Arcane Mel. Yeah. Okay. Whew. Yeah. Like Mel's mom was like, "Oh, I sent you away because you made me weak, right? Because I couldn't make the hard decisions around you because you kept giving me that, oh, why are you doing this look?" So, yeah. That's like the one bit of connective tissue. The rest is just sort of science-y, kind of tropey, like, oh, the magic is dangerous, but we can use it. Magic's dangerous, that sort of thing. It's used fine in the story, but it's not like it's not super interesting. It's fine. It's there. We've seen it before. Nothing special. So now we have Jinx and Silco. I think the best character in the show is probably got to be either Silco or Jinx. Oh, these two have their problems as well. And this is sort of where we can start zeroing in on the final episode. So Silco has his little arc where he learns in the end of the show why. Hold on, what's his name? Hold on. His name's Xander, right? Yeah, Xander. Where his former partner Xander was unable to like make hard choices for the sake of the underworld, because he was weak or whatever. And finally, Silco learns what he was talking about, right? Because Silco loves Jinx, right? As a father, not in a creepy way, as in like very like a pretty wholesome, like, I'm your father figure and you're a daughter figure and I care about you and I care about you sincerely and deeply, right? Like that's kind of where we land in the final episode, right? Like even after Jinx like kidnaps him and shoots him, like he forgives her, right? Like, this is sincere. The problem is this doesn't land as strongly as I want it to. So we're going to bring sort of everyone together here, right? We've got in the final scene, we've got Silco. Hold on, we'll just put you right here. We'll leave Jinx big because she's like a more pivotal character, and then we can have Caitlyn, and she's like barely a character. There we go. That's about right. Yeah, that's about right. Actually, no, we'll like Silco bigger. Okay. So the final scene. This is where everything comes to a head. This is where my problems lie. It's a fine final episode, right? because Jinx is conflicted about who she is. She feels like she's been lied to. She's overheard that Silco has made some kind of deal. Wait, it's not Xander, is it? Hold on. His name isn't Xander, right? Vander, excuse me. God. The show has also, as a quick side note, the show has a weird problem of all of its characters being very generic and tropey. Like, as soon as I saw Vander, I was like, this guy's dying, right? And for a moment, my friend actually, while we were watching, my friend tricked me into thinking that he was going to live. And I was actually kind of excited. I was like, oh, Vander's going to, like, live? Because this character usually, like, you know, eats it. The first stack, you know, classic move. You know, mentor figure, father figure dies, leaving the main character or main characters alone in the world with only the memories of their guidance but you know, he dies, whatever. Sorry, so anyone who got triggered for however long this has been, 5 minutes before I figured it's Vander, who cares, right? Listen, Vander, also not a very interesting character. Okay, he's very generic, not bad, you know, well acted, well animated. Unfortunately, he was born with the curse of not having goofy colored hair, so he's not main character material. But you know, he's whatever. It's fine. He's like Caitlyn, right? He's another necessary. He's like another necessary component for the story to move forward, and that's his function. I didn't feel like he had really much character of his own. Even in the end, where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna drink this shimmer stuff and Hulk out." Like this stuff happens. It's fine. So anyway, back to the final episode, right? So Jinx feels betrayed, has everyone sitting around this sort of, you know, birthday tea party, sort of Mad Hatter bullshit. Silco's sitting there, and like, you know, he can't talk, and Vi's there, and she's tied to a chair, and she can't do shit. And Jinx, after like a little fake out where she's like, "Oh, well, I'll bet you think that her head's on this platter, right?" No, it's just a cupcake. And that was a fun little fake out, I guess. She wheels her out, and this is where the sort of arclessness of these characters kind of comes out. There's room for a lot of... So what's happened? Vi. Here's Vi. Here comes Vi. Vi is always calling Jinx Powder, right? Powder is, of course, Jinx's previous name, right? When she was just, you know, Vi's little sister who kind of messed things up and was a little clumsy and made fun explosive toys, right? Like that's who Jinx is to Vi and who she has been, because Vi's been in Stillwater and she doesn't know what Powder's been up to, right? She's like, "Oh no, like Silco's got her. I've got to save her. I got to get out of here at some point." And that's probably what she's like molding over in in Stillwater. But no, turns out Jinx has been like willingly working with and for Silco. But she keeps calling her Powder, right? She's still holding on to that, you know, younger, more innocent version of who she believes her sister is. Meanwhile, Silco, as I said, like, you know, Jinx, even after she like kidnaps him and shoots him and basically and kills him, like he still forgives her, still loves her, right? And so the emotional sledgehammer for Vi is that she's saying, you know, I love you, you're my sister, I care about you, but the problem is Silco is like way more capable. Like, in this moment, Silco loves Jinx more than Vi, because Vi is unable to engage with who her sister is now, right? Like, her sister's Jinx, right? Like, this is who she is. You know, she's already done fucked up shit. She's killed people. She's done big crimes. And what she needs is someone to love her for who she is right now, which is something that, you know, even like young Powder was having trouble with, right? It was like, oh, like, these people around me want me to be better. Like, they want me to be more like Vi, or they want me to be more competent, or something like that. Which is why she goes to the warehouse and like blows shit up, because, you know, I'm going to help. You know, I'm going to show them that like, I'm capable. Even after Vi told her to stay back, stay behind, she felt left behind. Now, this tyrant warlord goon is more capable of loving Jinx than Vi. That's where the trouble should be for Vi, right? Like, that's what this is building to, because Vi is unable to wrestle with the fact that Jinx is who she is now. And this can go a couple ways, right? This can either go in the direction of where Vi's like, hey, listen, like, I don't care who you've killed. I don't care what you've done. Like, you could have killed 100 people. You could have killed 1,000 people. I'd still love you. I still want you back. I'd still want to be your sister, which would, of course, you know, actually give Caitlyn like a little reason to be there, aside from being a prop, right? Because, you know, Vi would be saying stuff like that about someone who's killed like a bunch of people that she knows, right? She's killed a bunch of enforcers. She killed a bunch of all that shit, right? So that would actually give like Caitlyn some reason to be there. Excuse me. Or it can go the opposite way, where Vi lacks the emotional intelligence to recognize that what Jinx needs is for someone to love her for who she is right now. Which kind of, it's kind of there, but again, like, she never has to, like, it never comes out like that. Like, they're interrupted. We're too distracted by all of the shit happening for that to really sort of land for Vi. And so Vi doesn't recognize what Jinx needs, and of course Jinx is all like crazied up because of like weird surgery, brain chemicals and stuff. And yeah, so what we get is like, we have a little, it's like kind of satisfying with Silco, because we get to learn with him that he is actually capable of loving someone, and that this is like what's really worth fighting for, right? But even that part, you know, where they have that last scene, doesn't really land for me, because I don't really know what they're like, right? I don't know what Silco and Jinx are like as people, right? Like we went through a time skip, right? After the first act, we get a time skip. I want to know what happens in that time skip, right? Like, how did their relationship develop such that they're at this point, right? And Silco's probably wrestling with like, okay, like, do I really like love her as this like part of my family? Is she just another henchman that I happen to pick up? Like, how do I engage with this? Like, that's probably what's going through his head. And, you know, Jinx, you know, she really needs someone in her life right now, because, you know, Vi's gone, and Vander's gone, or whatever, and like, we don't get any of that, right? We get some good scenes with them, right? Like when Jinx is, you know, in his office and she's like drugging his eye and stuff like that. You know, what's not to like about bonding over drugs? Yeah. But like, there's not a lot of it, right? Like I don't know, like did Jinx give him like birthday presents, right? Did Jinx get bullied by the other henchmen similarly to how she got bullied by was it Milo and whoever the other guy was? I don't know those kids' names. Whatever. Like, did she get bullied similarly? And Silco gave her the confidence to like really be who she is, which is like a gunman and like a tinkerer and stuff like that. You know, he gave her like the tools she needed to thrive as an individual. I don't know. Like, I don't have any of that. You know, we just skipped it, and we came to the end result, which is fine. But like, when Silco like drops the bomb, right, when he's like, you know, bleeding out and like, oh, I'm dead. And he's like, I would never have given you up to them ever. That sort of thing. Like, that would have hit way harder if we knew more about like what their relationship was like, and if we'd spent less time, maybe in Piltover, or if each episode again had like another 10-15 minutes, that would have landed, right? That would have landed a little harder, and maybe when Jinx, if we had that time when Jinx wheels in Caitlyn, it doesn't feel like Caitlyn is just like a prop wheeled in, because we need someone for Vi to have to choose between. So why not Caitlyn, right? Or whatever. Like she could have wielded an Echo and it would have been the same thing, right? It wouldn't have felt any different. Just a face I recognize. Like, the only thing is that like my brain neurons fire and I'm like, oh, that's someone we know. That's someone Vi knows. But it's not. She's no one special, right? Like, we would have had more. Like, we could have had more time with them. Maybe they should have, like, you know, smooched a little bit, right? Like, I'm not saying this for like my like horny desires, because I mean, listen, I'm on the internet, okay? I can find pictures of hot animated ladies kissing wherever, okay? That's not what we're here for this show for, right? But like, I mean, that intimacy does like serve a narrative purpose, right? Like, you can get that kind of connection, and that would add a little more something, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not even. Like, maybe they just needed more time. And if the show was ready to like really can like hammer home that Vi doesn't know what her sister needs, like, that would be a solid end, right? That would be a solid arc, right? Instead, it's kind of unresolved, right? There's too much chaos in that scene toward the end where nothing really feels resolved. Even Jinx's craziness, right? Like, it doesn't feel grounded in anything. It just feels like, I feel like I needed more. That's what I'm saying. Like, I needed more to buy all of these characters. I almost bought them. Like, I'm almost buying them, and I can buy them for a bit. I can buy them for a little bit, right? It's like they brought out a taster tray of like all these great dishes. Like, oh yes, a bowl of world building, delicious, and like a plate of interesting character development. I'll have a bite of that. But like, I've tasted it and it tastes good, but I'm not satisfied, right? Like, I have the taster plate, but I need the meal. I need all of it, and I haven't gotten all of it. So yeah, that's why Arcane is 8 out of 10, right? It was good, it wasn't great. It could have been better. It was like a solid good. It wasn't just like, it's fine. It's a solid good, right? You can watch Arcane and you can get out of bed for it, which is more than I can say for a lot of shows. But there's just too much going on. It tried to do a little bit too much, like 10-15% too much. If it had like trimmed out or done less with the overworld and focused more on, like, again, like the heart of the story is Vi and Jinx, if it had focused more on that instead of like all these other characters who are like fine, but they don't really contribute to like what the show is, at least by my estimation, is about. It was a little too messy. Wasn't bad. It was good. Solid 8 out of 10. I don't know. Subscribe. Whatever. Don't. Fuck off.